We're driving to Elizabethtown, Kentucky to do a house show. And, OVW, the idea was to simulate being on the road as much as possible. So we drive, set up the ring, put on the show, tear it down, drive home. Every day we do that, or we'd have practice. So we were working a lot. And I remember Dusty Rhodes came to practice one time, and there was a guy named Fearless Jack Bull. And Fearless Jack Bull received a phone call from Dusty Rhodes, and he assumed it was somebody doing an impersonation of Dusty Rhodes. And when Dusty Rhodes said, "Can you ride a motorcycle, baby?" he said, "Nope." And then he's like, "Well, can you learn to ride a motorcycle, baby?" And he said, "Nope." And he's like, "Okay." And then that was the end of the conversation. Then he looks and he sees 203, and that is the area code for Stamford, Connecticut, and he had a heart attack. And the opportunity never came around again. He never got called up to the main roster. This was his opportunity. Mm-hmm. He was going to be a badass biker guy, and it just didn't happen. So Dusty Rhodes came to our school and said, if they ever ask you if you can do something, the answer is yes. And then you better learn how to do it before you have to do it. So I got a call. It was Mike Bucci, who was known as Nova. And he was sitting with some writers, and they were looking for an Italian superstar. And I was playing a Russian character at the time, Boris Alexiev. And when they were looking at the developmental roster, they're like, "Is anybody Italian?" And Mike Bucci said, "I think Boris is actually Italian. His name's Anthony Corelli." So they called me up and they said, "Can you speak Italian?" And Dusty Rhodes popped into my head, and I said, "Absolutely." And they said to me, "Well, can you say something in Italian? We're sitting here in a room with the writers." And so I said a couple basic phrases that I used to, when I used to drive in the downtown Toronto rush hour morning traffic. I had a little cassette, an audio cassette, a tourist Italian audio cassette that I would play every day, just so I memorized the whole tape. And I just played a couple things from that tape that I memorized, and I guess I said it authentically enough that they said, "Okay, sounds like Italian to me." And that's it. They called me back and they said, "Okay, we're sending you your passport. You're flying out to Italy tomorrow. You're going to land on a Sunday, and you may debut on Monday Night Raw as an Italian superstar." And that was it. I went to, I think it was Borders or Chapters, whatever the bookstore is in the United States, and I bought an 8 DVD set of Italian, downloaded it to my iPod. The entire flight, I'm just drinking espressos, trying to absorb as much Italian as possible because I better learn how to do it in case they put me in front of an Italian audience. And yeah, we got there. I was by myself for a day because the rest of the tour was still on tour. And they showed up at the hotel at night. And the next morning, we all got in the bus, went to the building, and I'm sure some people were like, "Who's this guy on the bus?" But I knew some people from OVW, so it was pretty cool. Get to the building, and as soon as I walk in, Arn Anderson is walking out of the production meeting and says, "Hey kid, you're going to have a pretty good day today. You're winning the IC title." And he walks away, and I'm like, "What did he just say?"
Yo.
And my stomach starts twisting, like I'm winning the IC title. Like, I needed obviously confirmation. And that was it, man. I found out I'm winning. I had a meeting with Vince, and we had a meeting with Michael Hayes and Vince to go over the segment. And that was it. Once we went over it, they said, "Okay, see you out there." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what is this happening?" And they, just as the show started, they planted me in the audience in my seat. And then the first seg was the seg where Vince came out and made a challenge, an open challenge to the locker room at first. Nobody accepted it. Then he made the open challenge to the audience. And of course I was put in a position where he knew I was going to be and raised my hand and he picked me, got in the ring, and the rest literally is history.
Yep.
So my wrestling career, I started very late. I started training at 28 years old, which is right on the border of being too late.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I would have thought it was too late if I didn't make it myself. Had my first match at 29. Realized there wasn't much going on in Ontario, so I went to Japan at the age of 30. Went to go learn pro wrestling. I ended up just training like a fighter. And then we had a little issue in Japan. I overstayed one of my tourist visas. I was banned from Japan. So I go to OVW at 31 years old, and I'm green. I can fight. I can do, I was trained a little bit, but I'm still very, very green. I don't know how to tell a story. There's just so much I don't know. and I get blessed, and I meet a man named Rip Rogers, who fast tracks me, and we train 2 times a day, and then once with Al Snow, and then I'm doing weights. So I'm training like really pushing myself to my limits. I'm 31, my daughter's at home, I don't have time to waste. If I moved away from my family, I'm going to make sure I maximize it every second. So I train really hard. And then Paul Heyman, he observed one of our classes, he saw something he liked, he put me on TV as this killer, Boris Alexiev, who just destroyed people, and I did that work shoot style where I'm throwing stiff kicks and arm locks and just beating up guys, which is fine. It was good. I was learning a character, but I still wasn't learning how to wrestle too much. The most wrestling learning that I got was in class, having matches in class, which is not in front of a real live audience, which is very important. So anyway, at the point when I'm called up to WWE, I'm still green. I'm still a lot more green than people think. And I had to really learn on the job and on the fly. And luckily I was put with guys like William Regal and Chavo Guerrero. And those 2 guys stick out a lot. Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Those guys were instrumental in my expedited education while being on the road. Later on down the road, once I had it figured out and dialed in, I mean, I was very fortunate. Now that I'm on the road, I got guys like Arn Anderson, Dean Malenko, Mike Rotundo, Fit Family. These are the guys that are around me helping polish my education. And DX was still on the road at the time. Ric Flair was on the road at the time. Yeah. So it was really like graduating to a level of higher learning. And I learned on the fly. But those guys, though, Chavo and Regal, they really stand out as, working with them, and then after the match coming back and going, oh, okay, that's so easy, I get it. And they were great leaders, so I'm indebted to them forever.